Salvation Army's Girls Work, Calgary, Alberta. And this book is fascinating, marks the 75th anniversary of that work in Calgary. It's just clearly a local production put together to celebrate those days, but some fascinating notes in it for at least me as I read through. Let's start just with this reference here in the introduction. A reminder that in those days, Alberta was part of what they called the Northwest Territories, and the work was begun there in 1904, 10 years before First World War. And you'll see that the Salvation Army had been in Calgary since 1886. Staff Captain Arthur Young arrived with a small brigade of officers. 1904, they began the work with young women, girls, they called them, rescuing fallen girls from a life of prostitution. And you can only imagine what it would have been like as a young woman on the streets of a fairly small and remote area of the country at those days. No social assistance. Get by on your own wits. The little booklet that they've created here, dedicated to all who worked in this for 75 years. A letter to Captain Mary Booth. I'll come back to that in a moment. Commissioner of the Day. This is Arnold Brown's tenure. Is John Waldron. And there's a letter from the Commissioner in his normal scrawl. Then to Captain Booth, Park Woodhouse, Calgary. Someone who many of us will remember. Lieutenant Colonel Doris Routley was the Women's Social Service Secretary. And then history of the girls' work, and I won't take you through all the pages. There's actually quite a bit in here. What was fascinating to me as I opened this up, discovered this, was this note. From Mary Booth, Captain Mary Booth. Here's the connection with the family. Mary Booth was Irish, ended up in Hamilton, Ontario. I'm not exactly sure she was a Salvationist, but she ended up at Hamilton Temple as a young woman. When my folks were Corps officers, I was just a kid. And I remember Mary went off to training college from Hamilton Temple, and if memory serves me correctly, spent a Christmas with us, with our family, because she didn't have family in the area. Anyway, the other interesting thing was she acknowledges history. One of the acknowledgements is to Mr. Moyles of R.G. Moyles, lives in Edmonton, still writing these days. History of the Salvation Army. Anyway, fascinating little book, just not big, small. And you'll see I put some things up on the website, fredwaters.ca, looking at the history of the Salvation Army in Alberta these days as I go through some of the material given me for the archives.